Get ready for Connect 2025. Enjoy an action-packed conference full of learning, innovation, and networking, and get the chance to experience the historic hospitality of Grapevine, Texas. Stroll through quaint streets lined with unique shops, cafes, and wineries. As the wine capital of Texas, Grapevine offers world-class wine tastings and tours. Take a scenic ride on the Grapevine Vintage Railroad for a step back in time. Experience all Grapevine has to offer at Connect 2025.
Kara Benson, thank you for being on. Appreciate you giving us the time today. We'll spend about 30 minutes or so kind of talking about kind of like your LTC model there at Lewis as well. But let's start with a little bit of just like kind of who you are, what you're doing inside the Lewis organization and kind of the pharmacy and how you guys service the patients you have, a little bit of the model, but like, let's just like level set from that perspective.
Absolutely. Yes. Thanks for having me. So yes, Kara Benson, Director of Long-Term Care for Lewis Drug. Lewis Drug operates in a tri-state area, that being South Dakota, Minnesota, and Iowa. My focus is obviously long-term care. So it's just managing those combination shops that about 70% of our locations have, and making sure that everyone's operating the exact same way, so we can be as efficient as possible. Our model is pretty unique, and so the location that I primarily service is a central bill location. So our outside facilities, pharmacies, utilize us for fulfillment of their cycle medications. So every month they send a mass file for us to produce for their nursing homes. We send those medications back ready to go to the nursing homes, and then from there, they just kind of fill in as needed, I guess. So any bulk items they help with, any order changes, the local pharmacy provides those services. But we handle the bulk of it here. But really the face of the pharmacy still remains that local pharmacy. We just do the background work for them.
That's cool. Okay, I want to dig into the model a little bit, but let's learn a little more about Kara first. How'd you get into, like, I know you're the director of the LTC side for Lewis. Where'd you get your start? I always love to try to understand, did you have any major influencers while you were coming up that mean a lot to you or that you would like to just add as a note? But how'd you kind of get going in your pharmacy journey?
So really started out just as every other pharmacy student, really didn't know long-term care existed. Floated for a few years as a pharmacist assistant, was working in these combination shops where they're split pretty 50-50 retail, long-term care.
Okay.
Became more interested in the long-term care just on the operational side. How does this all work? Where does pharmacy play a role? How are we impacting what's going on in the facilities? I guess just through those questions and always prompting for more answers, just kind of fell into this role. I feel like by asking those questions, seeing it from both, the provider side and the nursing home side, had just built relationships with multiple individuals, and have landed me here.
Cool. Any family in pharmacy, or is this just not at all?
No family in pharmacy.
Okay.
No first generation college graduate. So
all right, congrats.
Yeah.
Me too, I guess. If you call what I did graduate, I graduated. I graduated barely though, but no. Okay, well that's cool. So a lot of kind of just experience in combo pieces that makes total sense to me. What about like as far as the decision or like the journey around like going, hey, look, we have a large footprint with Lewis Drug in general, as far as like kind of, I'll just say community to retail footprint that you guys have. Any of the internal debate you could share to be like, hey, look, should we centralize this? Should we not centralize this? What were some of the like, hey, look, here's the benefits and control pieces we get by centralizing it. Can you kind of talk through a little bit of the rationale around like adopting the model you guys kind of going with now?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So it really came from Lewis Drug. We had two closed door long-term care pharmacies, and we were
Right.
going back and forth whether that made sense or not to keep two or really focus on one and do one very, very well.
Okay.
And so we went back and forth, lots of logistic conversations, how we were going to manage everything, but decided essentially to close the one long-term care location and just keep the other open. Of course, conversation about what's going to be best care for our patients. And really, we decided that was keeping the face of the pharmacy at the local level,
Sure.
but helping out those local pharmacies on the back end. So just kind of being background, a shadow, if you will, helping out. And so ideally by having that local presence, we keep those relationships with the community.
Sure.
Our pharmacists, it's our technicians, our pharmacy staff are still going to the same schools, churches, grocery stores as those working in these nursing home facilities. And for Lewis Strubs, that is huge. We love that we can have an impact in our community, and we don't ever want to change that. We don't ever want to feel like a nursing home is just another number to a corporation.
Okay.
So that's ultimately how we landed on the decision that we did, is just our community presence.
That's cool. That makes total sense. Let's, I'd like to keep pulling on that thread a little bit. So, I know part of the, I'm going to say one leg of the model, one pillar of it, I guess, is like, hey, look, we do, the retail is the kind of landing spot for everybody from that perspective for the most part. Are there portions of the business that you're also just like serving traditional, like kind of LTC, in the model where it's just direct from your pharmacy into the LTC facility itself, with probably not needing or maybe mitigating in some way the retail footprint at all, to where you're just directly dealing with the facility itself?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So I'm actually a chief pharmacist as well for our long-term care location, and we do service beds just directly from ourselves.
Okay.
Too. So our pharmacy split 50-50. Half of it's about central fill, and then half of it focuses more on the facilities that we service directly here.
Got it. So like, can you just like talk to, I've always tried to like, when building relationships with facilities, like everyone kind of has their own, like, I guess, perspective, a little bit of like how they think about like when you're making a relationship with the facility. What are your thoughts on some of the things that make you guys unique around like when you're establishing a relationship with Lewis? Obviously, y'all got a really fairly powerful brand in itself, at least in your tri-state area that you service. So like, can you expand a little bit there as like your perspective into, hey, look, when we're going into a pharmacy, this is what I really care, or start going into a facility, this is what I really care about, what I think they care about.
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing that has helped us with our relationship is putting ourselves in the facility's shoes. So really seeing that final end point. Our consultant pharmacists actually work 50-50, consulting and working here at the pharmacy, and they're our bread and butter for keeping those relationships happy. They see struggles that happen at the facility, bring them back to the pharmacy, and then we just kind of talk about them, see how we can change our order of operation to make things go as smoothly as possible. So I guess really just communication with the pharmacy through their struggles the facility, struggles that they're facing, and how the pharmacy can maybe take that struggle completely away from them or help a little bit.
Got it. Cool. So it's unique, and it's a hub and spoke, but also a direct to facility, like hybrid in both, like in both sides of both ways model. Like, all right, let's kind of go with the combo side first. Can you kind of talk through a little bit of like, hey, what types of patients are those? And a little bit of what they care about, what you think about, how you think about those patients, and then we can get into a little bit of the facility side too. But with the combo space that you guys have that you're servicing as a central fill pharmacy for, are those mostly LTC at home customers? Like what's a little bit of like about the demographic of those patients, and then how you feel like, I guess, your perspective on those patients and what they care about?
Yeah, so I would say the population that we centrally fill for is 50-50 long-term care residents, whether that be skilled nursing, assisted group homes. The other half is actually typical retail patients, but we do special packaging to help with compliance for them. And so the compliance packaging is definitely those, I would say, that are struggle, obviously, with compliance. So typically we think elderly, we think maybe disabled at some point, whether we'll have a real combination of things. People that have a bulk of medications that they take, and they just need help organizing them and separating them out into different times. So I think that compliance is huge for those people, and
Gotcha.
just the ease of taking medications is important to them. They understand that their medications are essential. As far as our long-term care patients go, that one gets a little trickier.
Yeah,
I would say that they probably focus, our communications with long-term care residents are mostly financially based. So just wondering if there's, any cost savings for medications, or which medications can be combined to save on costs. But those would be your stereotypical nursing home residents, assisted living residents.
Probably some caregiver conversations in there too, right? Like around, like that's the compliance packaging probably helps with a lot with like the organization, taking the, I was just talking to my mom literally 3 days ago. I don't think my mom listens to this, so I can say it. But she takes care of my my grandma a lot, and they literally spend, I don't know, every week putting everything in an organizer, things like that. And even then, there's times where it just gets, things happen, right? You take stuff you weren't supposed to take, or more than what you're supposed to take, and things like that with that piece of it. So it's a huge benefit. And I told her, and I know the pharmacy she goes to, I was like, hey, look, they do this already. It's like, just go, like, if you just go ask for it, they may not know you need it. She just got a few new medications, so that's kind of part of it. But I think part of that, to me, the other element that some folks don't think about sometimes, well, some don't, is that caregiver element to it, that also the peace of mind, they can be like, hey, look, let me take the burden off of this. And all you got to do is just give them this pouch, or just tear this thing off the card, and you're good. So I can see how that makes a huge impact inside both segments of what you're doing, and kind of your responsibilities for filling in that space. Is it strip packaging you guys are mostly adopting, or is it a little bit of each?
Yeah, yep, the strip packaging. And that actually brings up a good point. One of the things that we realized at the nursing homes is there was a lot of time using their stock medications, and that was becoming cumbersome for the nursing home staff. So we started packaging all of their quote unquote stock medications for them, and that's helped us with MedPass. They just think it's a lot easier. They don't have to go to a different segment of their med cart and grab that bottle and make sure they have the right one. So our packaging really is impacting those caregivers at home, and then on the in the long-term care space as well.
Okay, so you guys even say, hey, let me help you with your stock meds that you're pulling off the cart.
Yeah, that's a recent change, but providers love it because they know exactly what medications the patients are getting. Sometimes it can get tricky in those long-term care facilities when there's two Tylenol strengths right next to each other, and who's going to make sure that the correct Tylenol bottle was grabbed for this resident, if it was grabbed at all. So right,
and if you're just grabbing something out of the bottle, like, a nice thing about pouching it is, like, it says on the pouch too, like, hey, this is what this is. Like, there's it's like, perfect. A small thing that probably didn't cost you guys a lot to do, to like just improve the relationship, improve safety for the patient too. It's just huge win, like just win-win all around. Cool. Okay, so let's talk about workflow a little bit and what that's like with the combo side, if we can. Tell me a little bit about your workflow from that perspective in there. I know it's probably unique in itself, just managing as many, I'll just say a 50-ish store footprint. I don't know how many all of them, if all of them participate with your pharmacy or not. I imagine most of them do. What does workflow kind of look like? Do you guys have to stage that workflow? Do you guys go, hey, look, these routes on these days, kind of similar to like LTC in general, but what's that? How'd you kind of organize the work a little bit?
Yeah, everything is very scheduled. Just because of workload. Yes. So we actually operate on 28-day cycles rather than the stereotypical month-to-month cycle that a lot of nursing homes use. That 28-day cycle really allows us to stay on a week-by-week schedule.
Yeah, that really helps a lot.
Outside pharmacies send us a file to fill, essentially. We get it filled, we ship it out back to the pharmacy. The pharmacy preps it ready to go to the nursing home. So here at the pharmacy, we just are making sure that we're receiving those files on a designated day, making sure we're working on them and getting them out the door in a timely fashion so they can get to the pharmacy in time. They can do any additional prep work if needed, and then get to them to the facility for check-in before the exchange happens.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so they're kind of still the final mile of delivery too at times for the facilities, right? At the retail point, they're still kind of that final mile to delivery, right?
Yes, yep. So we've really worked hard to make them the only face of a pharmacy that the facility recognizes. So if facilities still have issues, they call the local pharmacy. Everything you want to come from the local pharmacy to maintain that relationship. We're really just helping that local pharmacy on the back end with their fulfillment.
Leveraging that. Yeah. I imagine the delivery, there's kind of two probably really important people for the facility then in the facility's eyes. I imagine the pharmacists they're used to working with, one, like you said, some of the consultant pharmacists too. But three, I imagine the delivery drivers a little more than just a regular delivery driver to them as well. Like, yeah, it's a super important role. We just had somebody on that was talking about like sometimes like it's all the delivery. At times with some of those folks, they're just like, that's great. You're the owner. Get out of the way. Let me talk to my delivery driver. So it's such a, it could be looked over as kind of like, I just need someone who's going to deliver meds. Well, it's also the face of the company for them sometimes too. So, that makes total sense. So, I guess going back into the LTC side, so pure play LTC for the ones at your pharmacy service from that perspective. Obviously we're all pretty aware of how those run on in this audience base for sure. I guess from there a little bit, you're managing a kind of a hub and spoke system on one side of the house, and then a direct from your pharmacy out to the facilities you serve directly. Workflow challenges there a little bit or not? Like just you're in a different instance of the systems you're in for the most part. All the machines kind of still talk to the same thing. So I feel like that's kind of like checked on. But give me a little bit of the operational workflow difference between like flipping out of your combo shop mentality into like, okay, cool. Now these are our facility customers that we got to go work on.
Yep. So it's definitely a balancing act trying to manage the hub and spoke in our own facilities as well. Most of the times our staff is split 50-50. You're focused on the central fulfillment aspects today. You're focused on our own facilities for the day.
Okay.
But of course, that's a perfect world, right?
Yeah,
and so
yeah,
lots of time we have to adjust on the fly. Thankfully, we are all under one roof. We have no separating partitions or walls, so our workload is very transparent. If our facility side is getting lots of admits that day or having just a day, we've all been there.
Yeah.
Everyone watching this one all flip over and help out where needed. So our primary focus is our facilities that we service independently, because we realize that stuff is more time sensitive, and then we can always help out on the central fulfillment when needed. That's a little more scheduled, so there's a little bit more flexibility within that. We don't time crunch ourselves. So I guess that's kind of how we balance. But of course,
Sure.
it's a game, and it varies hour by hour. Sometimes you have to flip back and forth throughout the day, but it all gets done.
Everybody leaves with the work done. I get that. That's cool. I guess from what you're seeing out in the world, from like what's important from the facilities, anything I've been trying to glean a little bit of like, is there anything new popping up from facilities perspective? Like, hey, are they asking more of you in certain ways? Or just asking, do you do these things too? And things like that. I've been hearing more folks layering on services and vaccine services and things like that with some of their facilities and their, that they're partnering with. But like, is there anything that you're seeing kind of coming up over the last few months or this year or last 12 months or whatever to go, hey, look, this is what they're kind of asking us or what we're leaning into with them too?
One of the biggest focuses that we are trying to immerse ourselves in right now is the integration between EMR systems and our pharmacy software. I think there's just a huge potential there to relieve some workload from the facilities as far as order entry goes. So that's one thing that we're really trying to dive deep into to figure out. We on the facilities that we have decided to integrate with, we've seen huge changes for them. They're able to spend that time more with the patients, caring for them just one-on-one directly, rather than sitting on a computer trying to figure out which calcium tablet to enter in, and then changing that once the pharmacy supply shows up. Really just kind of negates the order entry for the nursing staff at the facility. And it's already a system that we're doing here. We're already entering orders into the pharmacy software. So it really is no struggle for us.
Right.
It's really fun to see that play out.
Right. So you're right now, you're focused on like, hey, how can I remove friction out of my facility's day for working with me? Right. Like if I could make that frictionless, they love me more, they stay with me more, right?
Absolutely, yes. Yes, we just want to be as easy to work with as possible. So if that means you don't enter anything into your EMR system as far as medications go, by golly, let's do it.
Yeah, better. Okay. Second thing, I guess, from there, like, I'm seeing more and more like, hey, look, we're layering on some just like vaccination services or other types of services for some of these facilities. I imagine you probably share in that workload with the ones you, or tell me, maybe you don't, but at least at the retail footprint that you guys have, I imagine that would be where some of that work lies. And then for the ones that you serve directly, or maybe you augment, I don't know, with some of the facilities you work, are you seeing some of your facilities go, hey, look, man, can we mass vaccination season coming again? So that's why I'm asking from that perspective.
Absolutely, yes. Lewis Drug actually has an immunization coordinator, and she has been a godsend. So she goes and contacts all of the facilities for us and sets up immunization clinics every fall. And she's amazing. She does the COVID vaccine, she does flu vaccine, she does Shingrix if people need it. She just is she just covers all of the vaccines. And then she also does clinics at the retail locations as well. So she's in charge of setting all those up, making sure they're staffed so it doesn't hurt the pharmacy when mass amounts of people come in to get immunized. She takes care of all the billing for us as well.
Oh, man.
So she...
What is her name? We need to give her a shout out on this.
Everyone needs one of her, for sure.
What is her name? Let's call her out.
Yeah.
So but no one else call her. Like, she works for Lewis.
Yeah, right. You can't have her.
You can't have her. We're not doing it. Post her LinkedIn profile after this. No, I'm kidding. Okay, cool. Well, what about, so I imagine inventories can be tricky at times in a model, especially in the hub and spoke model that you have with the retail footprint. The LTC model is probably a little more straightforward. I know almost every LTC pharmacy, to be successful, it seems like all the ones I've been in, just manage it tight, like really tight on inventory. But the nice thing is you have scheduled runs, you a little more predictability in that model. I guess more in the hub and spoke model. Like, can you kind of like expand a little bit of like how you approach inventory for those? Like, is that completely separate? I imagine it's like an inventory group they're all sending through or something like that. To make sure that you're filling them, but is there any of that separate stock that they have to keep on staff at all at the pharmacy itself? I guess if you can expand a little bit there, give us some insight, be interesting.
Sure, yep. So we do operate off of those inventory groups. So just on the central fill side, just managing NDCs is our biggest challenge. So every time there's an NDC change, we just have to notify every outside location that this NDC did change and update our formulary as we go, just making sure everybody's aware of those changes. Of course, we can't house every single medication here at the pharmacy. Just like you said, we want to keep our inventory as low as possible. So there are some circumstances where the individual pharmacy is responsible for filling that medication for that patient, and it's not filled here. That's the central fill site. So, of course, most of the prescription drugs, we have no problem keeping on hand. There's probably residents at other locations that utilize the same thing. This gets to be some of those nuancy over-the-counter items that we don't stop here.
And I imagine I imagine your retail footprints probably handle all your acute stuff that you have to run out to the facilities or something like that as well, for the most part. So like the nice thing is you kind of already have your built-in, like almost every LTC pharmacy I know has some type of retail network that they can like do first doses for, or things like that, especially if someone comes in like late or whatever or something like that. They can like, oh, go to this 24-hour one or whatever, and we can get it started there, and then we'll take over from there. But the nice thing is you kind of already have that built in with the network of pharmacies that you have. So there's some like really cool relationships and advantages you guys get to tap into, along with this fantastic resource that coordinates all of your vaccine clinics and all of that. So that's cool. That's good. Well, I think from there, that's like kind of like, I think we're like, I'm already kind of like getting the clock watching here. But before we like, all right, let's step out of the pharmacy a little bit and just kind of think through like, what are you looking at? What are you worried about going in, or not worried? What are you looking at? It could be worried, but also just like, hey, look, we're going to focus on this over the next like 6 months or something like that. I know you already kind of talked about EMR integrations. Is there anything else outside of that you're looking at to go? Yeah, I mean, they're keeping an eye on this. I know everyone's got reimbursement pressures. That's the thing everybody's kind of talked about. Like I get that piece of it, legislative efforts, but what is it kind of like you're thinking about strategically spending your time on, or even your peer group that helps you with this pharmacy, either from an advocacy perspective or legislative perspective, focused on over the next, I guess, I'd say 12 months. I don't know if you saw the FTC kind of bombshell with PBMs that just got released. I'm still reading through it and deciphering it myself, but is there anything you're focused on like strategically and for your pharmacy to help either operationally, P&L wise, you name it?
And one of the things that we've been focused on is capitalizing on our unique relationship with the retail side, and creating like transitions of care programs to keep people at home. I think one of the biggest things that we are seeing is that nursing homes like is becoming full, or there's not staff to fulfill all of the bills. So just trying to keep people at home, and we're hoping to create a transition of care program with our unique model of having both long-term care services and retail services to keep people
at home. And they're not exactly building more facilities either, right? They're not just they're throwing up apartment buildings around here like crazy, but they're not throwing up beds at all for someone to use to get out of the hospital to either rehab through or from a long-term perspective either. So that makes total sense. You're probably super uniquely positioned with that, with kind of the care model that you have there with consultant pharmacists. You can layer on these basically like LTC level services along with this nice retail footprint of like touch points, and maybe even like a pay differential with payers as well, to be like, look, I can uniquely deliver this. Pay me more. So like,
yes.
Okay, cool. Well, that's cool. It's cool to think about. I make everybody do a prescribable section before they get out of here. I think I told you about it, and if I didn't, I'm sorry. But it's basically what are you reading, watching, listening to, or into? Somebody brought pickleball up a couple of podcasts ago I was on, but also like it could be work related too. What are you reading, watching, listening to, or into that you think an audience member watching this, listening to this might care about?
I know, no pressure.
No pressure. It's okay. I'll go first. I got two. I have been, and this is going to be a fun one. Right now I'm watching, I'm the guy like in the background when my wife's watching something. I'm like, no, I'm not watching it, but I'm watching it. So she's watching Killing Eve right now, and I'm super into that. So it's a good show. It's kind of a weird government MI6 serial killer vibe to it, but it's cool. It's fun. It's fun. That's the fun one I'm into.
So one thing that I've been focused on and just mentally ruminating about is Jocko's theory about how everything that happens in your life is your fault. And so just really thinking about that and taking it in.
It's such a good...
And just seeing how, you're not wrong. Once you start thinking about it, so just finding the fault in everything.
Yes. That's another good book. We probably should put that in the show. So Extreme Ownership, I think, is one of his other books. Like, is that the book that comes from? I can't remember. I've made everybody read it. My wife gave it to me actually to show me everything is my fault. I think I'm kidding, Marcia. I'm kidding. But no. It's good. It's such a good book. I love that book. So, all right, cool. Well, good deal. Well, that's kind of. I think we wrapped on time. So my staff doesn't hate me today. Well, I appreciate you being on. Appreciate you taking the time, walking us through the uniqueness of the model, what you're looking at, what you're caring about with your facilities. I appreciate it. And we'll post everything with the link to the book that you just threw out there, and then we will hide the identity of your vaccine coordinator so that no one else can poach or steal. So, all right. Thank you for the time, and we'll see everybody down the road. See you.